Am I the jerk for saying there goes the neighborhood to my new Middle Eastern neighbors? Posted by you/Dunbuttle. The meth heads who lived next door disappeared sometime a few months ago, and I came home from work Friday to see new people moving their things in. My wife and I walked over to say hello, and I jokingly said as we walked up, "Well, there goes the neighborhood." They kind of laughed, but admittedly awkwardly, and we introduced ourselves and they introduced themselves, etc., etc. They were very nice, but when we mentioned we often have barbecues and a few of the neighbors join us, they seemed to make excuses for why they probably wouldn't be able to make it. No big deal. We came home, and as soon as we were in the door, my wife rounded on me, saying how messed up it was that I said there goes the neighborhood because they are Middle Eastern people. It honestly never even entered my mind what race they were, except maybe in a passing thought. We live in a very diverse city with a lot of Hispanic and Middle Eastern people, but admittedly a kind of white neighborhood, and they just seemed like people moving in next door. The whole joke stemmed from the fact that the people who lived there before were crazy and on drugs and homophobic. They told us all about it, and the new people seemed like a normal family. I didn't end up mentioning this to the new neighbors, though, but only because I didn't want to seem like I was talking about people behind their backs. I still think that without the context, the joke was fine, but my wife is insisting that it was distasteful and racist and makes me look like the racist white guy next door. I think she's being way too sensitive, and she's the one who is singling out people by even imagining they would be offended by it. So, am I the jerk for saying there goes the neighborhood to the Middle Eastern family moving in next door? Top/relevant comments. Commenter. You're the jerk. Without context, it's difficult to see how they would have interpreted that as anything other than a shot at them. Ops response. Should I try to explain or is the damage done? I seriously never meant it badly. It's been a relief to see some normal people next door, and I don't want them to feel about us the way we felt about the crazy people who lived there before. Commenter. I think you absolutely should explain it. I'm sure they'll feel better about you if you do. Ops response. I will do that. Let's just hope the explanation doesn't also go off the rails with my awkward attempts at humor. Commenter 2. Honestly, that's a strange thing to say to a neighbor when you meet for the first time. I understand why they would be apprehensive. Ops response. I often make uncomfortable and stupid jokes. I'm a little awkward. I think it's from an old stupid 80s or 90s movie though. Commenter 3. Dude, a joke with no context is not a joke, it's just a random rude comment. Ops response. There's a fine line between a rude comment and a bad joke, but there is a line. If you look really, really closely at the line, it has a tiny little word, intent. It's hard to see, though, and that's why after about the 15th bad joke, you retire from comedy and resort to only joking with your kids, and that is the genesis of the dad joke. Commenter 4. You made a racist joke that has some convoluted intent, meaning that, for starters, even when you explain it, doesn't make sense. Your crappy neighbors left, new ones come in, so what? This old racist cliché doesn't work even as an intent joke, and beyond that, you didn't even try to give your new neighbors the background info to understand why your racist comment was really just a dumb comment. You just let them think you intended the blatant racist thing. Ops response. To be clear, I never even really considered the joke as racially charged. It was an old dumb 90s movie about criminals moving in next door. I never even considered it being used that way until my wife pointed it out. I researched it a little, and while it didn't originate as a racist sentiment, just general hatred of newcomers and other white people, like the Irish, it was definitely co-opted by the people who oppose desegregation, and I therefore fully agree with you. But it didn't have anything to do with race as I said it in my mind, but that's not really what counts, so I have to try to make it right. Commenter 5. You're the jerk, but I get the joke, and it was not a shot at them, but they couldn't have known. Give them a round of cookies or something and apologize for any misunderstanding there may have been, and get on with being good neighbors. Take care. Ops response. Thanks, friend. I will do that. I think I'll have to explain the crazy ex-neighbors too. Within 10 minutes of meeting us, they told us to stay out of nearby town, because it's the homo capital of the world. My theory is that they met their first gay person in this city and their tiny little fried brains couldn't cope. They had what looked like 20 adults living in a house with one little old lady, and none of them ever worked. Strange men would just pop up in the yard when my wife was outside alone with the dog and try to bum cigarette money. And we constantly found empty liquor bottles behind the house where people were obviously lounging in the dark. I'm not normally judgmental about how people live their lives, but they made it hard not to frown at them, and they made my wife and kids feel unsafe. I felt bad for one of them once and paid him to do some odd jobs for me. He took the money, ran home to get his phone, and then never came back. Then one day there were no lights on in the place, and we haven't seen them since. So it was a relief to see a nice family move in, and that's where my stupid joke originated. I suppose I should have explained about the other people, but it didn't seem to suit the conversation, and I didn't know at that moment what I had even done. Update 1 day later. I walked across the street to talk to the neighbors when I took my wife's embarrassing puffy dog out tonight. I made an attempt to explain the joke I shouldn't have. This is roughly the conversation. So I just wanted to make sure you guys didn't take offense to the dumb joke I made the other day. He looked a little puzzled. I said there goes the neighborhood jokingly, like you guys were ruining the neighborhood by moving in, but what I really meant was that you guys were making the neighborhood better because the people who lived here before were a little scary. I really just wanted to make sure you knew the joke didn't have anything at all to do with you guys being Muslim. To which he replied, "We are not Muslim. We are Roman Catholic," and I didn't hear any joke. It took all my willpower not to bust out laughing, which would have made me look more like a lunatic. I said sorry again, though I don't know what I was even apologizing for at that point, and he said something like no problem or no worries, and then I scurried back across the street. I didn't even mean to say Muslim. I meant to say Middle Eastern, because I know not all Middle Eastern people are Muslim, but I don't think even that would have helped the interaction be less awkward or made me look any less ignorant, because I don't think they are Middle Eastern. I honestly couldn't tell if he was offended or not. Now we are just keeping the curtains closed forever. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Holy Michael Scott, the second-hand embarrassment is excruciating.